Today on the Left of Old North, we are crossing state lines, but not literally, to talk with one of the Texas Democrats making headlines this week, Representative Trey Martinez Fischer. First elected at just 29 years old, Trey is now one of the most senior and effective members of the Texas House, known for his willingness to fight tooth and nail for voting rights, fair maps, and public education. He's been called a, quote, soldier prepared to do battle but ready to make peace. Though right now the battle is front and center. Trey and his fellow Democrats have left the state to break quorum and stop an outrageous mid-decade gerrymander, a move that would hand Republicans 5 extra congressional seats, all to cement Donald Trump's grip on power before the midterms. We're grateful to him not only for defending democracy in his home state, but for also crossing over the border today to join us on a North Carolina politics podcast. So, Representative Martinez Fischer, welcome to the Left of Old North.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you. And, I know Adrian already kind of said thank you in the intro, but, we can't thank you enough for just what you're doing to kind of, defend democracy in general. I mean, this is, kind of just an all-out assault and honestly just kind of at least in my opinion, kind of a testing ground for what else they can try to get away with in other states as well.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said to other folks, this wasn't the fight that I picked. I didn't just wake up one morning and say we're going to break quorum. I mean, the fight picked us. Texas is unique in lots of respects. I mean, we're pretty big, and whatever happens in our state will likely show up somewhere else. We feel that pressure. And then, of course, Texas is one of only 4 states that requires a 2/3 presence for a quorum in the state legislature. And so not everybody has the tool that we have. And obviously our founder said we're going to put it in there for a reason. Well, we're using it. We took the dust off of it and we've been using it for the last couple of weeks. And in this instance, we are putting up our share of the fight to save our democracy.
Can you walk us through that decision a little bit? Because I know it must not have been easy. Governor Abbott has responded with imposing penalties, daily fines, and is even issuing arrest warrants. The FBI is currently getting sicked on y'all. Like, what went through y'all's mind before this decision was made?
Pretty much all of that, just as you mentioned. I mean, look, I've been in the legislature now. This is my 12th term, so I'll be completing 24 years next year. And this isn't my first rodeo. I mean, quorum breaks are very rare. The very first one I did was in 2003 when Tom DeLay took power and wanted to do mid-decade redistricting in Texas. And we went for a few days in Oklahoma and we were able to stop that measure. But prior to '03, it hadn't been used since the 1980s. So this wasn't a tool that we resorted to. We work out our problems. We sit at the table. We get, pragmatic solutions, just like you do in North Carolina. Here lately, folks have gotten really hyper partisan, ultra MAGA. They don't want to negotiate. They want to act like their leader. And that's just really not for us. I mean, that's not the way, we handle ourselves when it comes to civic debate. So, yeah, of course, knowing the stakes, a daily fine, if you don't pay the fine, they start attaching, deducting your budget that we have for our employees and our staff, questions as to whether we would be legally challenged for abandoning our offices. So there's all these professional stressors. And then look, man, we're married. We have families. Most of the people I work with, they sign the back of the paycheck, right? They work for somebody. They have to explain why they're leaving again because we just left town. We just left our homes for 6 months for a regular session. And then for other folks who own a business, try running one 1,000 miles away, always with your suitcase packed because you never know when the next bomb threat's going to come and you have to relocate, right? So a lot of stress going on. But we recognize this. We recognize that we didn't pick this fight. It picked us. And we had to do something. And I'm a proud Texan. I think about the Apollo 13 mission where you hear those famous words about Houston, we have a problem. This is like America. We have a problem, right? We need to wake up. We need to rise up. This democracy is being stolen right in front of us. You all are the tip of the spear in North Carolina. This has been happening in your state, and your litigation is still going on. We have the same situation. Funny how that is because states like Georgia, North Carolina, and Texas seem to be changing demographically. We seem to be recognizing our political power And so we're the ones getting beat up on the most, right? We're
Right.
the ones whose power is trying to be silenced and muzzled because they're trying to hang on to power and they know they're losing it.
100%.
Hmm.
They're afraid. Simple as that. Now, a second ago, you mentioned that bomb threat, and we wanted to kind of ask about that really quick. That kind of obviously takes this whole thing from, it goes from political protests to being a life threatening kind of situation. Like, how did the group handle it? What do you think that says about how high these, tensions have gotten?
It's a really good question because it was real early in the morning, right? And so, just, I don't want to make light of the moment, but you definitely, at 7 a.m. in the morning, you recognized who the early risers were in your delegation. So, I was on the verge of going for a run, so I was actually put together and caffeinated. And so, you know, it, I don't think we expected that, right? And to add context, we're regular people. We have single parents on this trip that have their children with them, and I'm talking like 9 years old and younger. And so to have an alarm blaring at 7 a.m. saying evacuate the building, there's been a bomb threat. You don't know what to do. Luckily for me, I just had to grab my wallet and my keys, and I ran out. But for others, I mean, it was an ordeal. I think we all came together and of course we were worried about, maybe, something else was going to happen that was bad. And, and so, but here's what we did. I mean, we came together, we stayed together, and then we put our faith in Governor Pritzker and we listened to him. And if his experts felt like we needed to do something else or, change the way we travel and how we protect ourselves, we were fully going to listen. So we were grateful to have a host in Governor Pritzker to allow his team to give us the best practice and advice. And so,
Yeah.
we're always looking over our shoulder, no doubt about it. But we feel like we're very safe here in the state of Illinois, and also most importantly, while this all happened, it did not deter us from the mission.
And he's not the only governor that's taking action either. Governor Newsom has essentially put Trump in check, warning him and Texas Republicans that they need to stand down or California's going to redraw on their own maps to benefit Democrats specifically. You could call this fighting with fire, but how do you feel about this kind of cross-state solidarity between you and California, and how do you feel about this kind of political posturing?
No, I think this is exactly, some of the hope. This is what we had hoped for, right? I mean, again, we can count votes. I've been doing it for 23 years. We don't have them in the House or the Senate. We have some time. We're going to make the most of it. Our job was to wake up the country. And if we just stayed home and had this fight somewhere on a Wednesday evening where nobody cared and had very little coverage, nobody would have even heard about it.
Right.
Not even the folks back in the district that I represent in San Antonio. We knew we had to fight this in the national arena, and so that's where we are. We believe we're waking this country up. We have sent delegations to many states. We've been to California twice and met with Governor Newsom and the legislative leadership there in California. And one thing is certain, we all agree, if Donald Trump is going to toss out the rule book, if there are no rules, then okay, we're going to fight fire with fire. And Governor Newsom said that for every seat you pick up in Texas, we will offset it in California. And in fact, Governor Newsom did even better than that. He sent President Trump a letter. And he said, if you don't do this, I won't do this. You stand down in Texas, I'll stand down in Texas. And we are now seeing governors in other states, Governor Hochul in New York, Governor Moore in Maryland, other Democratic governors, reevaluating this, even though they have commissions and so forth, figuring out what legal options and strategies they have, because nobody is going to have this election taken from them before the first vote is cast. And I don't care if you play sports, dominoes, cards, or you enter yourself into, science contest. Why would you ever enter a contest if you knew the other side was going to win before you even started? And that's
Mm.
what's happening with Donald Trump. I keep telling people he is not the commander in chief. I call him the commander in cheat, right? Because he's cheating on America and he's cheating on our democracy.
Sure is. I don't know if you maybe I'm sure you're very tapped in. So if you saw Gavin Newsom's version of a Trump letter that was sent to him via social media, I don't know if you caught that.
I didn't catch it, but we had a briefing a couple nights ago, and I heard, and this is where I learned this information.
It was
But
formatted like one of those rambling Trump tweets. So if you get a chance, you should look at it. And
my team is flagging, that's awesome. I want to see it.
Now, with talking about California maybe redrawing their maps as a response to this, New York, I've seen, I think maybe Illinois mentioned it as well. I know a bunch of like Democrat led states have mentioned this. You know, there seems like this could be a way of kind of spiraling into like a cold political civil war, so to say, just kind of this back and forth and whatnot for our at least democratic processes. And that's a fight that Republicans seem to be more than ready and eager to wage. Do you think that's kind of a dramatic way of looking at it? Do you think it might be a little too accurate?
No, I mean, I think that's the only thing these people understand. And look, I'm a Democrat, very proud of that. And I live in a beautiful democratic city, and everybody gets along, and we get along with everybody. I mean, we don't have Republicans that kind of, get that extreme. And if they do, there are not many of them. That being said, I tell my Democratic family all the time that the difference between us and Republicans is that when Republicans get power, they use it. And Donald Trump is using his power. We get power and we start having a debate between the perfect and the good, right? And
mm,
so, this is a lesson to us. This is what can happen when we lose elections. This is what can happen when we lose South Texas Hispanics because they feel like blue collar issues aren't on the table when we're looking at national policy. And so, yeah, I think this is the reaction we need because there has to be a grown up in the room that says we're not doing this. I ultimately believe most of this stuff is going to be fought out in the courtroom, and I certainly hope that cooler heads will prevail and recognize that this is not how to control a democracy. And so, it's unfortunate, but it is going to be an escalation before there's a de-escalation.
there are certainly a number of things that, unfortunately, like this is the main focus right now, but work still has to get done in the legislature, right? While this is happening, other other actions are not being taken, laws are not being passed or debated, and meanwhile, we have members of our federal Congress that are trying to call for the FBI to basically drag you all back to Texas. And it seems that Kash Patel is taking it. That would be Senator John Cornyn specifically. And Kash Patel is seemingly taking him up on that. Do you think? Did you know it would come to this, or were y'all expecting this kind of action from the Trump sycophants?
Didn't I mean the FBI was a little bit rich. That was a new one, right? But I've been told they won't come for us because we have the Epstein files, right? So I mean, they're gonna stay far away from us, right? And, Governor Pritzker again has pretty much said, "Hey, you all want to come to town, you want to visit, have a nice meal, spend some money. You're not leaving with anybody, right?" And
Mm-hmm.
and so, we have not felt the effect of that threat, and of course, we're not asking for it either. But again, you know, the threats that are being made, the language that's being used about hunt us down and leads to all this sort of vigilante, type of justice where folks want to take the law into their own hands.
Mm-hmm.
Our families are back at home, and we want to make sure they're safe. And I will comment on this. I don't want to paint law enforcement with one brush. I'm very thankful that the law enforcement community, even those charged with coming after us are taking the responses and calls from our families very serious and providing them with real protection. And that says a lot about law enforcement. They're not going to, at least our local Texas law enforcement, they're not going to get involved in the politics. They're going to do their jobs.
This isn't the first time you've had to fight for fair maps either. When you let, well, I mean, you still do, but when you were the chair of the MALC, that's the Mexican American Legislative Caucus, correct? Uh,
Yes.
in some lawsuits and fought some chronic inequities. Is this moment differing from that passed, or is this a new feeling, or is this kind of more of the same?
In truth, it is a pretty significant departure. The Mexican American Legislative Caucus, we call it MALC, has been in existence since 1973. It is the oldest and it's the largest Latino caucus in the country. We're even larger than the Congressional Hispanic Caucus in Washington. Now, we're pretty big and we're pretty proud, and we don't take a lot of BS. And this group sued the state, took them to the Supreme Court on two occasions. As a matter of fact, there was a very bright, on top of it, attorney who was part of the litigation team. Her name is Allison Riggs. I'm sure you've heard of her. I remember sitting in the courtroom with her and
Well,
watching
well.
her present a case. And so Texas has been a troubled jurisdiction ever since the inception of the Voting Rights Act. And in every decade beginning in 1970, Texas has always been found to intentionally discriminate against its voters. And that is a fact that we should not be proud of. But the intentional discrimination that happened back then is really, really just changed in today's environment, just with the inception of technology, AI, and the ability to model with data and elections. You literally have politicians picking their voters. And this is where it gets a little nuanced and we lose people by this. But just think about of all the technology you have on your iPhone and all the things that you can do with it you could never do before. Well, now just take that technology and put it in the voting space. They know
Hmm.
who you are, they know where you live, they know what you buy, they know your credit score, they know your preferences, they take your picture and they run it across social media. They know who your friends are, they know what you do. And so they will compile all that and they will profile whether if you decided to vote, where you would land. And
Right.
so with precision, districts are being drawn, and they may look like they're minority districts because they are percentage minority districts,
Mm.
but they know from political performance that they will never act like one. And they know that. So they can walk into a courtroom, swear under oath that race had nothing to do with this because this is a majority Hispanic seat, but they know that the electoral behavior of those folks, they will never act like it because they won't vote.
Right. And all you got to do is go on elections Twitter for like 5 minutes, and you'll see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of maps that people have jerry rigged and like played around with to see just how far they can push it. And if you think that people on Twitter are the first people to do that,
Right.
you're crazy.
And how this process has really changed too. We used to draw our own maps, and even the members of Congress, they would draw a map as a Texas delegation, both sides, and then they would present it to us. We would make a formal rendition based on our software, and then we would, put that on the floor. Now these maps are coming from the sky. Like nobody knows where they come from. Nobody knows who drew them. They just all of a sudden become part of the record, and that is what is alarming about this process.
We've got a whole history of gerrymandering here in North Carolina that's just absolutely insane to say the least. We're kind of getting to time, but just want to ask a couple of real quick questions. One being, where do Texas Dems kind of go from here?
Right. No, it's a great question. I mean, again, I mean, the reality is we know where we stand vote wise. We know the bandwidth of our members and the personal struggles and stressors that we have, and we also know that it's a matter of time, before we, sort of, outstay our welcome. I mean, it's tough to protect, 40 or 50 of us in one city, and have to be responsible for moving us around when things get tough. And so we said, that our job was to take this fight and put it on the national stage
Mm.
and to get other states and get the public to wake up and rise up. We have our faith in the American people that they will not be underestimated when it comes to preserving and protecting our democracy. And we also know that, that at some juncture, we have to hand this baton off to the next state that has fresh legs and fresh ideas. Right now, that seems to be California. We are hopeful that in less than 1 week's time, we're going to see significant movement in California. And we've been told over and over again by, Governor Newsom that this wasn't going to be possible had it not been for our efforts to be that initial spark. And so, look, I think our job now is we've demonstrated that we are willing to be part of this fight. We have sacrificed for this country. We have given other states time to prepare and be ready. And I think now we will now maybe find ourselves sitting in the back seat now, let someone else take the wheel and let us provide the support. Let us keep, the momentum going and let us continue to rally this country around because this stuff's going to happen fast. I mean, I don't know about the laws in North Carolina, but we start filing for office already in November. And before you can file for office, you got to know where you live and where you're going to run. And the county elections folks got to tell folks, here's who you're going to vote for. Here are your districts. And so you just can't change these maps and expect them to show up at the ballot box without time. So, we've got the legislative piece and now we have the legal piece and then we're going to have the national response. So, we've got many cards to play in this game just, right now.
One last very quick question. People wouldn't all readily walk into this kind of danger, with fines, threats, and legal action being taken. What is your message to voters, not just in Texas, but nationwide, to keep up hope?
Yeah, look, I mean, this is real, right? This is not an exercise or a hypothetical. Literally our democracy is being unraveled before our eyes. We are looking at a president who believes in authoritarian rule, right? That ought to scare you, ought to scare the hell out of you. And we need to come together. This is bigger than North Carolina. This is bigger than San Antonio, Texas. This is the entire country. And we need to respond like that. And so we have to come together and do our part. You're in the middle of a big fight. We've got to figure out how to support you all in North Carolina and give you hope. I can't, I'm not giving up. You can't quit because I can't quit. Like we're in this together and we don't worry about, the obstacles. We don't worry about the repercussions. I mean, that's not why we were elected. I'm not gonna, just sit here on the fence and not get into this fight. That's why I'm here. That is who I am. And that's who Texas Democrats are. We're going to, we didn't pick this fight, but we're going to finish it. And we can't do it alone. So, look, I recommend three things. Number one, at least for us in Texas, as we sit here in Illinois, if you know us or if you've read about us and, send my colleague a note. Touch somebody. Let them know that, they're fighting a good fight. Make them feel good because I'm in the room with them. And, our cup isn't full. I mean, it's tough. Number one. Number two, if you are involved and you're engaged and you're organizing and you are working on democracy projects in your state, keep doing it. Don't give up. And then for those of you who have done both of those things and you're saying, well, what else can we do? If you're going to walk into the coffee shop and drop $5 on a latte, and you're like, what else can I do with this? Put some resources where it's going to count. Help us here in Texas, help other groups that are doing this. We know this fight's going to California. You may want to help them. Yeah. I have an organization called onetexas.org. Pretty easy. I wrote it down. A little cheap plug here.
There we go. Thank you. No, that's good.
onetexas.org. Let me tell you what's good about this. No consultants, no commissions, no middleman. 100% of those resources come here to fight this fight in Illinois. I've got fines. I have 3 members of my team babysitting me literally to make sure everything gets done right. So that is, 3 air flights. That's 3 hotel rooms. That's 9 meals a day. That's countless Ubers. Who knows what it is? Mm-hmm. And we need fuel for this fight. If you can chip in, great. But if you can't, do one of the 2 other things because that's what we're going to need to get through this.
If we're fighting fire with fire, let's keep fueling that fire. Representative Trey Martinez Fischer, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us and talk about what's going on. We really, really appreciate what y'all are doing. Can't say that enough.
Thank you. And hopefully next time we come back on, we're going to talk about like barbecue or something. Okay. We'll have a good one. All right.
Yes, sir. Texas barbecue on top. Anyway. All right.
Adrian.
All right, man. You guys take it easy. You need anything, you holler. Okay.
Yes,
Will
sir.
do. Thank you.
Take care.